Now, lots of people will try and tell you that becoming rich is easy, probably because they want to sell you some sort of get rich quick scheme. However, this isn't the case, especially at a young age. It's not impossible to become wealthy, but you do have to be very strategic. I'm not pretending to sell a magic bullet. In fact, I'm not selling anything. I just enjoy sharing my many years of experience, and I personally believe by avoiding these 8 things, you'll have a much higher chance of becoming rich. Hi guys, it's Mark. So let's make money interesting so that you can grow your wealth. First up, we have extended warranties. I have to say, they're one of the biggest scams out there. Well, apart from the Squid Game token, that's for sure. I learned this when I bought my first method of transport, a Yamaha DT100 motorbike. I paid for an extended warranty, which they added to the monthly payments of the bike. Every month they were feeding on my bank account like some sort of vampire. The worst thing of all is I didn't need the extended warranty, but the salesman used fear tactics to pressure me into purchasing it. Just think about it. When you buy a new PC, the chances are the retailer bought the PC from a third-party supplier, meaning the amount of profit they make is very small. That's why it makes sense for them to push an extended warranty onto you. It's where all the extra profit is made. What people seem to forget is a lot of credit cards offer an extended warranty, so you can just purchase an item on your credit card to get the same protection, and you pay no interest as long as you pay it off at the end of every month in full. Most people just completely forget that they have an extended warranty, not to mention the fine print, which usually makes it very hard to make a claim. So it's good as throwing your money down the drain. Normally they ask you if you want a 3-year warranty. However, the manufacturers cover the first 2 years anyway. So the reality is you're only buying an extra year anyway. So honestly, when you factor in your consumer rights and using a credit card for payment protection, why would you need an extended warranty? I bet a lot of shops don't want you to know this. Number 2 is new cars. What if I told you that a new car was the #1 killer of wealth and financial freedom? The untold truth is that a lot of people take on car finance to look and feel rich, but most of the time they don't even own their own home and are living paycheck to paycheck. I was looking to buy a new car when I was around 19 years old, and I was amazed to find out that I could buy the same car pre-owned for around half the price. So from that point on, I promised myself that I wouldn't buy a new car unless I really wanted it and I could buy it from my passive income. In fact, I actually bought my first brand new car when I was in my early 30s, and it was for my wife. The first time I bought a new car for myself was around the age of 35. I am such a loving husband though. I now have a Tesla Model 3 as it's a great write-off for my businesses, but I still spend most of my time driving around in my old van from A to B. So many people finance their cars, it's gotten to the point that car dealerships don't even tell you how much the car costs. They just ask you how much you can afford every month, and if the car seems too expensive, they just lengthen the payment term so it seems cheaper. Those cheeky chappies, you gotta watch them. The average car payment in the USA is between $500 and $600 every single month just to drive a fancy car, and even when it's paid off, most people just keep upgrading as it's a status symbol. It's like an endless cycle of flexing. Just to drive this point home, average stock market returns are 10%. If you invested $500 a month for 30 years, you'd have over $1 million for retirement, and that's going off 10%. And we've all seen the crazy crypto returns lately, so just use your imagination of what's possible. Talking about crypto, if you want to grab $10 worth of free Bitcoin, then for a limited time, Coinbase is giving it away when you open an account. I'll leave the link below. Third, we have penny stocks. While it's true people have made a lot of money by investing in penny stocks, it's a real gamble. Believe it or not, the average annual penny stock return is actually minus 30%. Penny stocks are extremely high risk investments that usually have very little information and history, as the companies can be relatively new. This could be an absolute recipe for disaster due to the pure volatility of the stocks. Small market caps and low liquidity means it's far easier to manipulate the price of the stock. For example, the big stocks like Tesla have market caps far in excess of 1 trillion, so a few whales selling hardly makes a difference to the price, whereas a penny stock typically has a market cap of under 300 million. So all it takes is a few big sales and it can send the stock through the floor. I invested in penny stocks when I was younger and I had some great luck. This was back in the days of the Wolf of Wall Street. They used to have huge rooms full of salesmen on the phone pumping up the prices of whatever penny stocks they liked. These were known as boiler rooms. This was also they could sell at the peak and make huge profits for themselves. I think I got lucky and jumped in on a few of these penny stocks and sold before the whales, leading to a nice profit. So you may be thinking, why have I put this on the list? Well, the truth is that I got lucky, and looking back now, the potential downside was really not worth the risk. Number 4 is eating out regularly. Now, I don't want to seem like a downer, but the average American household spends $3,000 plus per year on eating out, and that's not even accounting for alcohol as well. When I was building my wealth, I always saw eating out as a waste of money, and therefore never fell into this trap. I learned how to cook at school, and I still enjoy cooking now when I have the spare time. Not to mention, cooking at home is generally a lot healthier.
Well, your body is a temple, Dad.
Yeah, probably Buddha. I think the bigger issue here is drink. Not only does it hold you back financially from your goals, it can also throw you off your game the next day, which is never good. I believe in maximising every day, and successful people don't have time for laying around all day with a hangover. The richest CEOs in the world, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, probably don't mind a drink, but they're certainly only keeping that sort of thing for special occasions. Next up is expensive gifts. It's so easy when you're young to think your friendship group is amazing and you're going to be friends forever, but that's just not the case. I often sit back and reflect on how far I've come, and when I look back, it's amazing how many people have come and gone from my life. Maybe this is because I never bought them expensive gifts. But seriously, when you're young, no one expects you to buy luxury gifts, and if they do, then, to be honest, they're no friend to you. I never saw the point of buying expensive gifts when I was building my wealth, and my girlfriend, now my wife, has never had any problem with that. If love is in your heart, then it doesn't need to come out of your wallet.
You should consider being a dating coach, Dad, with advice like that.
What can I say? I've still got it, son. But seriously, with all that said, it's important not to waste money on expensive gifts, especially for people that could end up being temporary. Every single expensive item you buy for yourself or someone else is a major setback, as early on in your journey it's the most important time to be investing so things can start compounding. I'm not saying you can't buy, who has sold over $5 billion worth of cars to the rich and famous, making him Britain's top supercar dealer.
I wasn't learning at school, I was called a dunce, couldn't read. It was always my desire and my dream to be the most famous and the best at what I do, and that's exactly what we are today. This complex cost 10 million. The lighting system was 300,000, the lift was 275,000. This building's made with handmade bricks, £2 a brick, £2 a brick. We can at any one time carry stock from 40 million to 100 million. Money's not everything. Well, everywhere I go, money's everything. I founded this business on my own back. The business is worth well over 300 million today. As a mature man yourself and a successful person yourself, you're going to get doubters in life, and if you can't handle rejection, you're never going to make it in life.
This is the story of how a young man went from nothing to becoming a millionaire, only to lose it all and then go bigger and better than before, with his estimated net worth now sitting at around $1 billion. Right, so today we're setting off to visit Tom Hartley. He sent me the address to his estate, and I'm not really sure quite what to expect, but I am certainly very excited. I've always put my success down to passion, as I believe this is the key to pushing yourself past your limits in business and in life as well. So I'm really interested to see what Tom thinks. The next time you see me, I'll be sat down with the man himself. So did you ever feel different to the others at school?
I wasn't learning at school, I was called a dunce. I couldn't read, I wasn't interested. And I was told by a school teacher called Mrs. McDonald that I was going to struggle in my life. I'd start dodging school, and a friend of my father's who owned a taxi business, he was taking me to the auctions, and I'd watch what was happening, because I was interested in watching cars be sold and bought and how auctions worked. So the first deal I'd done, I was just before I was 12 years old.
So you sold your first car at 12 years old?
I bought and sold my first car at 12 years old. I bought it from a guy called Billy Barty. He had a new Range Rover coming, and it was £1,950. I also knew a relative of my father's who wanted to buy a new Range Rover, and you couldn't get them. I put the deal together. It's called supply and demand. And I earned £250, and it was a lot of money. £250 in 1971 was a lot of money. And that was the start of the journey. So some of the heritage here over the years I've enjoyed.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, you name anybody you want to name, they've all been in this office. There's no computers on here. It's a telephone, piece of paper and a pen. That's what I rely on. You know, everybody from Andrew Lloyd Webber to the Sultan of Brunei, Rod Stewart, Elton John.
Yeah.
They've all been here, they're all there.
So when you were a youngster, could you really see that you'd have all your family around you as well as these beautiful showrooms?
Yeah, I mean, I had a vision of that, and I'm living it now. I'm living my dream. My son Tom passed his driving test in a Ferrari, and they set up the full television station here and filmed it live.
Amazing.
From here.
Yeah.
Going away and coming back. He's 17-year-old.
So would you say the drive to be the best you could be is what pushed you forward?
Like everything in life, to be successful, you have to take risks. I broke a few rules at that age. You know, I drove on the road at 14.
So did you get stopped by the police at all?
Yeah, I'd been stopped. I was 14. I drove a Rolls Royce. Back in the 70s, guys, when you got stopped by the police, the routine check is nothing like it is today. You could give your name to be Peter Johnston, 17 Main Street. They took that name and address down, and they said they'd write to you, and that was it. You never heard no more. Because I was in such a rush to get to where I wanted to get to in life and in business, with the ambition that I had and the dream that I had. I wanted to get there quickly, and I had to break some rules. I discovered a loophole in importing cars. To an extent, it was like a cartel in the business. I was importing at that time probably 10 or 15 cars per week. When I was importing cars in 1978, you got 4.5 Deutschmarks to £1. So the point I'm making for you who can't calculate, I was able to buy cars from the factory, import them, and sell them to dealers in this country. It was just an unbelievable loophole I found at the age of 17, just before my 17th birthday. I was a self-made millionaire.
So it's classic territory. I recognise this Porsche. I had one of these back in the day from the Wales House. 1976 Carrera.
Yeah.
And this Ferrari here,
Yeah.
is this the most expensive car you've currently got on stock?
No, we've got a car downstairs which is 3 million. This is 1.6 million.
So when you'd made that first million, was it all plain sailing from there on?
It just went crash. My world was turned upside down. I didn't lose $1 million because I gambled it or I wasted it. I lost $1 million because there was a technicality brought out because of my success. The manufacturers, the giants, BMW, Mercedes and Porsche, got together on this young kid, 16-year-old. They fetched a law out that you can only fetch one car, one person, and we're talking about a lot of money on deposit here, a big part of the $1 million. Here is a young guy who's made $1 million and lost $1 million, and he's not 20 yet.
How did you feel when these car companies started ganging up on you?
I was overwhelmed because I was out of my control.
To start investing all over again, I'll do things a little bit differently. So if you can follow all 5 of these steps, then you'll be well ahead of me when you get to my age. Step 1. Adjust your risk tolerance. In hindsight, I realised that I may not have taken as many risks as I could have during my younger years. The reality is that in your 20s, you typically have more time than money. This means that any risks you take have minimal downsides compared to those that have families and a mortgage. This is the time to build your empire, so being scared of taking risks is actually the most dangerous thing of all, as it means you'll fall short of your full potential. Of course, you should do everything in your power to swing the odds in your favour. However, you won't be able to eliminate risk entirely if you want to become wealthy. There is still going to be some risk in every opportunity, as nothing good ever comes easy. When times are hard, people are much more likely to let that little bit of doubt get inside their head and talk them out of whatever they want to do. I've seen countless friends say they're going to quit their job to start a business, but they never make that leap because they don't want to risk their comfortable income. When I'm judging whether or not to make an investment, I compare the potential risk with the opportunity cost of not taking that risk. Opportunity cost is what you give up when you choose one option over another. Thinking about this helps you make better decisions about how you use your resources. I'm not saying I always make the right decisions, but on average, I've come out profitable when I've used this tactic, and I also never want the thought of what could have been eating away at me. So the best way for you to grow your wealth is to take calculated risk with your money and use that time to grow your wealth faster than everyone else. Step 2, set it and forget it. I definitely should have automated my investments a lot sooner, as it forces you to prioritize your investments as the money is taken before you can spend it. This is when you arrange to have a fixed amount of money taken out of your paycheck or bank account every month and put into a predetermined investment. Investing $100 in an S&P 500 index fund is a good example of this. This will allow your wealth to compound over the years without you ever having to really think about it. This is a very straightforward process. First, determine how much money you want to save and from which account. Then go to an investment app and look for an automatic investment option and choose how you want to invest. They'll do all the paperwork. Once you sign off on the bottom line, the automated magic begins. In my experience, the majority of people that lose money when investing waste their time trying to pick the right stock at the right time. And if you've been watching my channel long enough, you'll already know that it's not easy to time the market. For me, investing is all about growing your money over the long term. ETFs allow you to invest in an entire market quickly and in a single transaction by tracking the performance of an index. You can choose to invest in specific regions like the top 500 companies in America with the S&P 500, the entire stock market, or even specific sectors like tech. InvestEngine is a Which recommended provider and is a platform that really resonates with me, as their entire focus is on long-term ETF investing. They offer ISAs, which are essentially fortified investing accounts protecting you from taxes. Because no one likes the tax man. With ISA accounts, you can only invest £20,000 per year, but any profits you make can be withdrawn completely tax-free. So I definitely recommend creating an ISA account with them and protecting your returns. If you sign up to InvestEngine today using my link, you'll receive a £25 welcome bonus when you invest your first £100. So you can get a 25% return on your money from the start. They even have an auto invest feature, which invests any cash that hits your portfolio straight into the ETFs you pick, so you really can set it and forget it. Thanks InvestEngine for sponsoring this portion of the video. Step 3, avoid temptation. I understand why people were drawn into the crazy crypto investments a couple of years ago, as this was similar to penny stocks back in my day. When there's a craze like this happening, lots of people feel like if they don't invest, they'll lose out on an amazing opportunity. So they start investing in things without fully understanding them. This has to be one of the most risky things that you could ever do, and it's probably the biggest investing mistake I see people making. I speak from experience. I made a few lucky investments in penny stocks when I was younger, and had I continued on that path, I would have lost everything. To be more exact, I had the opportunity to invest in a big group with a couple of billionaire friends. Everything they touched seemed to turn to gold. I can't reveal ideas and ambition, but without action, the life you've always dreamt of will start to fade away. Every day you wait, the more time you waste. And if you're not careful, your life will start to look a little something like this. Flat, predictable, and totally uninspiring. This is the reality for most people, spending the past 5 years in the same job with maybe a couple of pay rises if you're lucky. You can even see after these pay rises, the line doesn't improve that much and sometimes even goes down. This is because the more people earn, the more they tend to spend. The worst part of all is that this lifestyle pattern has become normalized by society, telling you that you're lazy and don't have what it takes to be successful. But even if this has been you for the past 2, 3, 4+ years, it doesn't have to be you this year. I don't believe you're lazy. You're just trapped in a system designed to keep you spinning your wheels on a flat line, convincing you that slow progress is the only way. So what you're feeling isn't laziness, it's frustration with a path that was never designed to help you thrive. Today's video is all about my 5-stage process to escape this trap and start creating some real momentum in your life. So let's get to it. Stage 1 is called stagnation, and I'd imagine that is likely where you are right now. The reason you feel like you've been thrown in at the deep end without any preparation or guidance is because that's exactly what's happened. You leave school and get your first job and that's it. you're left to your own devices. So you play it safe by sticking it out in the same job, taking zero chances. If you stay in this stage too long, you risk becoming a debt slave, where your income barely keeps up with your monthly expenses. Right now, the national debt clock is sitting at $36 trillion and increasing by the second. If this doesn't prove that our society is built on debt, then I don't know what will. People are owning fewer houses, fewer cars and fewer luxuries as the trend of renting instead of owning grows. This isn't just happening because times are changing. The elite have made their plans clear with something called the Great Reset. This aims to shift power away from people by depriving them of ownership and controlling it all themselves. Imagine the government owning your home and then letting someone else live there whenever you're away. This is the future they want, and it means escaping society's trap will be nearly impossible. They've sold us the lie that money doesn't make you happy. This was created by the rich to control the poor, keeping us dependent on state pensions that barely cover anything. In reality, money equals freedom, and freedom equals happiness. The rich are just going to keep getting richer, so why not just join them? If you can recognise this stage early, then you can take those calculated risks to get out before it's too late. Don't be part of the 58% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, which I reckon will increase over the next few years. The first action you take is the most important. Start by gaining full control of your finances. Track every dollar you spend and be honest about what's essential and what's a luxury. Use this awareness to automate your savings so you consistently put money aside each month, no matter how small the amount. At the end of the day, even your Xbox is smart enough to save your game progress, so why not save your funds? The next stage is called ignition. Now, believe it or not, more than 50% of people never even get to this stage, which means this is when you might start to see a difference between you and your friends. At this stage, you're doing everything you can to break out of stagnation, but it's pretty hard because you've got a couple of things that are holding you back. First is your friends. They won't always like your new attitude, as it forces them to either change themselves or be left behind. Both of these things are very painful. So instead, they will try to drag you back down to their level, as that's the easier option. I'm sure you've experienced this before. When you tell a friend about one of your achievements, they don't seem that happy for you and try to shift the conversation to be all about them. The second issue you're going to face is inflation. Keeping all the money you save in the bank will actually slow you down in the long run and create more stagnation stages along the way. So, how does this happen? Well, due to inflation, the value of cash in your account diminishes year after year. Here's a calculator that shows you the impact of inflation on your savings over time. Now, let's say you have $5,000 in your bank account and you're not earning any interest. If inflation happens at a rate of 2.5% a year, which is pretty normal, in 20 years, your $5,000 will still look like $5,000 in your bank account, but it will only be able to buy the same amount of stuff as $3,051 could buy today. So even though the numbers don't change, the real value of your money shrinks because things get more expensive. That's why saving money in a way that grows over time is so important. So now let's compare that with a scenario where you invest your money. So if you were to invest that same $5,000 into something like the S&P 500 and average a 7% annual return adjusted for inflation, the estimated value of your money after 20 years would grow to over $20,000. However, it's important to note that there are no guarantees. Investment returns can go up and down, and past performance is not a guarantee of future results. So this really shows the power that compounding returns can have over time, instead of letting inflation eat away at your hard-earned cash. If you want to get involved with investing, then I'd recommend you download the Trading 212 app, where you can invest as little as £1 or euro to get started. Even if you manage to invest £5 or euros per day for the next few months, it will really help you get started with those first steps and break out of that stagnation stage. Since I was planning to talk about Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. video. They agreed and are offering a free fractional share worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. Plus, you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested. Just remember only to invest what you can afford to, and don't starve yourself of cash, as there's a lot we need to do in the next stage. Next is the acceleration stage. Now, this is where you're starting to gain some real momentum, but what got you here won't be enough to carry you to the next stage unless you want to wait decades to achieve financial freedom. This is the time to accelerate. You need to fully commit to taking advantage of current opportunities, as they won't be around forever. At this stage, there are 3 C's that I focused on, which helped me accelerate my wealth dramatically: cash flow, connections, and confidence. Let's start with cash flow. You need a constant supply of money coming into your bank account so that you can use it to generate more wealth. Think of cash flow as the fuel for your financial engine. The best way to generate cash flow is to start a side hustle that provides immediate income. This doesn't have to be your billion-dollar unicorn idea. It can be a small, service-based side hustle with low startup costs that meets a specific need. Whether it's, I'm going to be sharing with you all the strategies that actually work for me, as well as lots of my mistakes, so hopefully you can do even better. This is the story of how I went from a small English town to the rolling hills of San Francisco and the bustling city of Shanghai, China, including all the challenges I faced along the way. Who knows, by watching this video to the end, it may open up a new pathway for you that you might want to walk down. You'll also find out why a simple desk like this can mean so much to me. If that sounds good, then give that like button a smash and strap in for the wild ride that is my life. Let me take you back to 1985. That's the last time I walked out of those gates. I was 16 years old, I was tall, skinny, and I had ginger hair. And I was broke, unfortunately. But I knew I wanted to make my mark on the world, and there was no way I could do that sitting in lessons, learning about things I wasn't interested in. So I went out to seek my fortune. But before we get there, let me take you back to my teen years. I was always looking to make money. I know it's a little cliche, but when I was a teen, my main side hustle was selling candy and cans of soda to all the other kids in the playground. On the weekend, I would also go fishing and catch hundreds of mackerel, which I sold around the neighbourhood. I remember knocking on every single door possible. I was offering a great deal, 10 fish for $1, but unfortunately no one wanted 10 fish. So I was forced to go back to the drawing board and restructure my business with a new strategy. I decided from now on I'll be selling 5 fish for $1, and I was shocked by the results. Everyone wanted some. Looking back now, these years were so important as I was practicing some of the most important life skills out there: sales and confidence. Without these skills, I don't think I'd have been able to achieve success in later life. So if you just take one thing from this video, then it should be to start honing your sales skills and being confident. This brings me back to these school gates. When I left here, I had several paths that I could follow. I decided I wanted a 9-to-5 job. I needed to learn a skill that would set me up for life. Going to work at 9 AM and finishing at 5 PM was the life that school had been drilling into me for years. So I really threw myself into it and actually lined up 5 different jobs because I was so keen to be successful. I had the choice between being a builder, an electrician, a refrigeration engineer, a shop assistant, or a carpenter's apprentice. It was a tough decision, but in the end, I decided on becoming a carpenter. The pay wasn't great at around $2 an hour, but I was learning a skill and I could see the potential for moving up in the company, and I really thought that this was my ticket to success. I really threw myself into my carpentry apprenticeship and I learned everything I could. I even won leadership awards, and I really felt like I was moving forward with my life. I finished my apprenticeship with honours from the college and thought, here we go. All the big jobs are coming my way. But unfortunately, my manager seemed to take a dislike to me. Maybe he started to feel a little bit threatened by my success and therefore decided to give me all the bad jobs. For months on end, he assigned me to making wooden trash cans in the back room. This gave me no ability to show off my skills that I'd learned and prevented me from working my way up the company to a higher paid job. I thought to myself, I hadn't really studied all this time to make wooden trash cans. Nowadays, it's a sort of repetitive job a robot would do. What was even worse is when I looked around the workshop, I saw many other people doing lots more interesting jobs. So I asked to speak to the manager, and where we're filming this is the exact spot where we stood. I said I needed more of a challenge. I couldn't keep making these bins. And you know what he said to me? He said, you're making these bins today, you'll be making these bins tomorrow. We got a 5-year contract with Walmart. You're going to be making a lot of these bins. Now that's when I realised I was completely powerless working a 9-to-5 job at the mercy of whoever was in charge. The pay was only just enough to cover my bills, which meant I couldn't just quit, but I was also unable to save any money. I was essentially trapped. So I got a Saturday job working in a radio control model shop. I also started a side hustle flipping cars, which basically consisted of finding underpriced cars, fixing them up and then selling them for a profit. To this day I still own this Ford Fiesta XR2 Mark I. It's a 1985 model, and the cars I was buying at that stage were costing me $200 to $300, and I was usually flipping them for I say $500 to $600. This little beauty's worth a little bit more than that now though. As well as doing all of this, I was also teaching people to fly radio controlled helicopters on a Sunday. There was a huge demand at the time, and all Sunday I would be booked out as long as the weather was good. Having these multiple side hustles allowed me to finally build out some kind of emergency fund. This is so important as it gives you the freedom to take advantage of any opportunities that come your way without having to worry about paying your bills. There is a huge opportunity cost that comes from living paycheck to paycheck, as you're so focused on next month's wage that you end up going through life with your eyes half closed and passing up on many opportunities without even knowing it. One day at work, the boss asked if anyone wanted to help install this beautiful staircase at a customer's house. I jumped at the chance. It was one of the most impressive houses that I'd ever seen. It had everything. I'm talking marble floors, chandeliers, a private swimming pool and a garage full of beautiful sports cars. It was my dream house. I started daydreaming and adding up how many years it would take me to earn enough money to buy a place like this. And I got gradually more and more demoralised, as even with all my side hustles, I realised I still would never have enough money. It was so close, but just so far at the same time, and I felt there was really nothing more I could do to achieve it. I was absolutely exhausted, physically and mentally. I was working every hour of every day. While installing the staircase, I would often look out of the window and see the owner relaxing in the garden or going off to play golf, and I really couldn't understand how this guy managed to have the life that he wanted and go and have fun whenever he wished. So I had to ask him a few questions, and he told me all about how running his business gave him the ability to make money while he slept. This is when I first discovered passive income. I'd never thought this was really possible for me, as school had only ever taught me one way of making money, and that was working a normal job. This concept of making passive income was so alien to me, but it really got the wheels turning in my mind. If this was a normal guy and he was able to do all this, then I was pretty sure that I could do it too. I started thinking back to my school years and selling those fish. That was my first real experience of running a small business, and I'd loved every second of it, from sourcing to selling the product. I couldn't believe that I'd been suppressing this for years and trying to conform to what society wanted me to do. Nowadays, passive income has become a bit of a buzzword on the internet, and I don't completely agree with the term, as it can sound a little misleading. Kickstarting passive income is certainly not an easy thing to do, but the idea is that you can do something once, like setting up a business or investing some money, and then earn from it even when you're not working. Of course, this requires some maintenance, but in my opinion, it's a better way to make money than working a 9-to-5 job if you want to be successful when you're younger, as your time is limited and therefore your income is capped. So now I knew that passive income was the answer. I devised a plan of escape. To have the best chance of success, I knew it was important to create a business in an industry that I was both familiar with and also passionate about. And I was lucky, I had the perfect idea. The shop I was working in on Saturdays was a radio control model store. Over the years that I'd been working there, I spotted lots of things they could be doing differently and all the mistakes that they were making. I researched and found the perfect location for a store. I even came up with the perfect name, which was inspired by an old TV show I used to watch when I was younger, Model World. I could really see the potential with this shop and how it would eventually operate without me even having to be there, essentially creating passive passive income. It finally gave me some hope and direction while I was working my normal job, as I knew that it was now only a temporary situation. Unfortunately, not a lot of people believed in me. I came from a working class background and I had little to no qualifications, so no one thought I'd be able to break into the market, except for one of my friends, who I told my entire plan to. I couldn't wait to quit my job and get started, so I could prove everyone wrong. I just needed to get enough money together first. Within a few months, Model World Shop was up and running. But it was nothing to do with me. My friend had stolen my idea and done it himself. I felt so betrayed and frustrated that I'd trusted him with all my plans. I even started thinking to myself that maybe being an entrepreneur wasn't actually right for me. I was stuck in my 9-to-5 job being ordered around by my manager with every bit of hope shattered. The worst part was watching my friend living my dream. I felt like a sprinter chained up in the starting blocks, unable to release all that energy. It was one of the worst feelings in my life. The whole future I built in my head started to come crashing down. Looking back, this was a great life lesson for me, although I didn't see it like that at the time. If you have a great idea, then it's best to operate in the shadows. Maybe tell parts of your plans to different people, but don't give the whole game away like I did. After this huge setback, I decided to pick myself up and keep working. I grinded as hard as I could and bought my first apartment to build up my credit score. I thought I was working hard before, but this was really the next level. I worked every hour under the sun, as I wasn't going to let my financial situation leave me open to having my dreams taken away from me again. This just shows the path to passive income is by no means easy. There can be a lot of setbacks along the way, but if you stay focused, then opportunities will present themselves. As if by magic, one day I heard some great news that my friend wanted to sell Model World. I'd visited a few times and noticed that he wasn't giving it the attention it needed. It had huge potential, but his passions were not in the business. I knew I needed to buy the shop and get my dreams back on track. This was the opportunity that I'd been preparing myself for, and I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers again. I had a little bit of money behind me, but it still wasn't going to be enough. Nowhere near enough. But I'd built up a good credit score, so I thought, I know what, I'll leverage the money I had and see if I can get a bank loan. He'd taken my great idea, he'd taken my name, but the one thing he couldn't take from me was my passion, and I knew that was the secret ingredient to making this business a great passive income generating machine. So I created the best business plan I could and got a meeting with the bank. I'd banked there since I was a kid and I had a good credit score, so I was hoping that everything would go smoothly.
Within 10 minutes, I'd been denied the loan. It was the worst interview of my life. I felt like I'd been kicked out of the bank. It was unreal. My head was down. I was walking back to my car. And do you know what? I really didn't know what to do. It was like being back at that house again. So close, yet so far. I had to pick myself up. And as luck would have it, the next building I stumbled on was this bank here. I hustled my way in and I got a meeting right there and then with the manager.
He actually said it was a very interesting idea and not only gave me the loan but promised to be one of my first customers. I have since asked him what made him take a chance on me, and he said he was always eager to help out the younger generation, and when he saw how passionate and hard working I was, he just couldn't say no. This is a perfect example of where preparation and resilience meets opportunity. You never know when your next stroke of luck is around the corner, and for me it quite literally was just around the corner. So without any hesitation, I closed the deal on Model World, the rights to the name and all the products they had. It was finally mine. I knew the hard work was yet to come, but it was mine. The first day I opened the shop, I had a sleeping bag behind the counter because I knew if I didn't make enough money that day, I'd be sleeping there because I certainly didn't have enough gas to drive the car home. Luckily, the first day was a great success. All the selling and negotiation skills I'd learned when I was younger came in really useful. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to make my business profitable.
After 3 years, we turned over $1 million, and it was crazy. It was crazy times, but it was good fun times, and we had more challenges along the way. After 10 years, we had 3 shops and a warehouse stuffed full of gear, but we wanted to be number one, so we had plans to push on even more.
I was generating millions in passive income and I felt like I'd finally made it, but I didn't realise just how open I was to losing everything. When it seems to be going amazingly well, you can start to get a little complacent as it seems like nothing can stand in your way. This is really dangerous as you stop innovating and take your eye off the ball. I was told to keep quiet, put my head down and get on with my work. But I found this impossible as I'm naturally very hyperactive, which led to me always being in trouble. So when one of my teachers sat me down and said, "Let's be honest, Mark, you're not going anywhere. So here are your options. You either continue to study, but it'll be a waste of everyone's time, or you can leave and try and get a job." It was one of the best days of my life as I was only focused on one thing: leaving. So I waved goodbye to the school with no qualifications or money under my belt, and when I became a millionaire in my early 20s, I was happy that I proved my teachers wrong. But even though I succeeded, I had very little direction and had to work out a lot of things by myself. That's why I'm making this video, because I wish I had something like this when I was starting out. If you follow all the steps I'm about to share, I don't see how you won't be miles ahead of everyone else. Actually, I pretty much guarantee you will be if you follow all of these steps. Step 1 is to create an investment budget. A lot of people put this as one of the last steps, but that's the main reason most people don't make it. They treat investing as an afterthought rather than a priority. I believe there are 3 types of people in the world: wasters, worriers and winners, otherwise known as the 3 W's. Wasters go through life spending everything they earn. They say things like, "Money doesn't make you happy." However, at the same time, they are spending all of theirs trying to improve their lives. Worriers hoard their money like a squirrel saving its acorns for winter. They say things like, "Money doesn't grow on trees." The sad thing is, even though these people have a lot of money, they often deprive themselves of the little pleasures in life in order to save a few extra dollars. They're so focused on using budgets to keep their expenses down that they miss the far bigger picture. Winners are the complete opposite of both of these people. They understand that money can make them happy and that it does grow on trees if they invest correctly. They earn money not to spend it, but to invest, all while not depriving themselves of the things that they enjoy. To become a winner, you need to change the way you think about money. Instead of seeing it as a tool to get the things you want, start viewing it as a tool to get more money. The only other way to make money is by trading your time, and personally, I'd rather use my money than trade my literal years on this earth. Here's something to consider. If you worked for a whole year and saved up $10,000, but you spent it all on upgrades for your car, you'd have to save that money all over again, costing you another year. However, if you invested it correctly, you could use that $10,000 to make $100,000. Then you could purchase the upgrades you want with some of the profits and still have an extra $90,000 that you can reinvest. That brings me on to step 2, which is to increase your value. Let me tell you the story of Cooper and Dwayne. They both lived in California and decided to take up surfing as a new hobby. Cooper searched for the biggest waves every day. He didn't bother with the smaller ones. Some days, if he couldn't find any waves big enough, he just went home. On the other hand, Dwayne went out every day and rode as many waves as he could. Whether big or small, he simply enjoyed the process of surfing and improving his skills. One day, Cooper and Dwayne were out at sea when a huge wave started to build on the horizon. Cooper thought to himself, this was exactly what he had been waiting for, a wave that was finally big enough for him. On the other hand, Dwayne was just excited to put his skills to the test and thought of it like any other wave. They both began paddling. Dwayne expertly popped up onto his feet and rode inside the barrel of the wave. He looked back expecting to see Cooper behind him, but he wasn't there. Cooper had fallen off almost as soon as the wave had arrived. All he could do was watch as Dwayne rode it all the way to the shore. In Cooper's mind, Dwayne had just got lucky, but the truth was, Dwayne had put in all the practice and learned something from every wave he'd ever caught. This is how most people approach getting rich. They spend too long searching for the one thing that will make them a ton of money, all while ignoring the day-to-day things they can be doing to increase their value. Huge waves do come every now and again. I've benefited from the dot-com bubble in the late 90s, the housing bubble in the 2000s, and the recent crypto boom. However, I wouldn't have been able to take advantage of them if I hadn't increased my value by investing back into myself. When you start thinking this way, you stop seeing every online course or YouTube video as the one thing that will make you rich, and instead just a little wave to conquer and add to your skill set. So where should you focus your time? Well, if you notice there's a clear gap in the market for a certain skill, such as a plumber, it really is a nightmare finding a good plumber nowadays. But anyway, that aside, if you decide to go down this path, it might make sense to spend $1,000 to get a qualification and then start making upwards of $5,000 a month. Over the course of a year, that would be a 60x return on your investment. If you can't think of anything to do, don't waste time waiting for waves. Instead, you can spend time mastering universal skills like public speaking, negotiating, and content creation. These skills will all come in handy no matter what path you decide to follow in the future, as they're all transferable and can be used in multiple areas. I'm not saying all education is good. I believe far too many people are going to university for degrees that aren't even worth the paper they're written on. However, if you view every skill as an investment and get some kind of return on it, then it's worthwhile learning. If it was me, I would repeat this step as many times as possible until I've reached my maximum earning potential. Step 3 is to open investing accounts. If you want to avoid being a worrier, then once you've increased your earning potential, you're going to need somewhere to invest your money, so it's time to open some accounts. It's a good idea to allocate a portion of your investment budget into the stock market. This isn't likely to make you rich in the short term, but if you begin early enough, then in later years it will start to compound. It's just so much easier than it was back in my day, as you can do it all from your phone. There are various different apps. I'll leave some of those links down below. One of my favourites is Lightyear, and they're also kindly sponsoring this section of the video. Lightyear is looking to give every European low cost and convenient access to the world's stock markets, and they're great at what they do. The platform
Years ago, I set out to answer this question by creating a video where I invested $100 into 5 different things. Today, I'm going to compare the results from those 5 investments that you can make from your laptop and try to finally answer the question once and for all. We're going to be using this grid to judge each one in these categories. First up, learning curve. This is how long it takes to learn the ins and outs of each method. Ideally, we want this to be as short as possible. Next is passive income potential, which is how much money an investment can earn for you passively while you still own it without needing to sell it. Then there's tax efficiency, which refers to the specific tax advantages or benefits available for each type of investment that can help you pay less tax. After that, we have risk level, which is about how likely you are to lose money and how much the investment's value might go up or down. And finally, we're looking at the results. This is where I'll reveal my percentage return over the last 4 years and exactly how much my $100 investment is now worth. Before we jump in, please remember, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my own results and strategies that have worked for me over the years. Please also do your own research. Okay, first up is individual stocks. Individual stocks give you the chance to own a piece of a company you believe in. This can be really exciting because you're directly investing in businesses that you think will grow or succeed. For learning curve, I'm going to say this is high. If you want to be successful picking individual stocks, then it's not just a guessing game. You'll need to dig into the nitty-gritty of a company's fundamentals. This includes looking into the financials, who's leading the company, and how well known the brand is. When I invest in individual stocks, I look through income statements, balance sheets, and cash flow statements. So when I invest in a stock, I'm in it for the long haul, which means at least 2 to 10 years. A great way to learn how to do this is by using an investing app with a demo account, which lets you play around with fake money until you're confident with your strategies. For passive income potential, I'm going to say this is good. You see, when you own a stock, there are 2 ways you can make money. Firstly, if the price of the stock goes up during the time you own it, you can sell it for more than you paid. Secondly, you can receive dividends. Dividends are regular payments to shareholders. Not all stocks pay dividends, but if they do, this means you can receive money without ever selling your stock. This is essentially passive income. Now, for tax efficiency. This is great. If you use the right accounts, then you can reduce your tax burden. In the UK, these are called stocks and shares ISAs. You can set one up on most investing apps, and any profits you make are safe from taxes. In the USA, there's something similar called a Roth IRA. These accounts work like a shield, protecting your profits from the tax man. While there are different rules depending on where you live, the idea is the same. Please bear in mind that I'm not a tax advisor, and you should do your own research as everyone's circumstances are different. So what's the risk? This is definitely high. Back in 1995, during the dot-com boom, I got lucky and picked a few great stocks. I sold them at the right time and made a lot of money in a short period. But when the bubble burst, some of the other companies I'd invested in, ones that cost me very little, went out of business completely, even though I ended up making money overall. It just shows how risky investing in individual stocks can be, especially if you put all your money into just a few companies. If they fail, you could lose everything. So let's look at how much my $100 investment is now worth. Let me refresh your memory. Here's what I invested in.
So I'm going to throw a dart at the board, and as you can see, I randomly selected 20 different stocks, and wherever the dart lands, that's what I'm going to invest in. Now I've just got to put on a blindfold. Okay, here we go.
Oh, you hit it.
Right, let's see what we got. And we've gone into Samsung.
That investment is now worth $67.66. But don't forget my dividends. Over the 4 years, I made 10 cents. So that leaves me with a total of $67.76. That's a negative 32.34% return. This example perfectly shows how hit or miss individual stock investing really is. That dart could have just as easily landed on Apple, Microsoft or Nvidia. So let's have a look at how much I would have made if that dart had landed a bit differently. A $100 investment in Apple 4 years ago would now be worth $170. The same investment in Microsoft would be $188. And, drum roll please, Nvidia would be worth $908. Those stocks have boomed in recent years, and luckily I have some of those in my personal portfolio. But this just goes to show you can't just leave individual stock investing down to luck. You have to be strategic with your stock picks, and even then the market is unpredictable. If you want to try this out, just download Trading 212. It's a great app for beginner investors because it lets you use a demo account to practice trading with fake money. This way, you can learn how it all works without risking any real cash, just like I mentioned earlier. It also lets you set up a stocks and shares ISA if you're in the UK, which protects your investment returns from taxes. But again, I'm not a tax advisor, so please do your own research as everyone's situation is unique. Trading 212 also lets you buy fractional shares, which means you don't have to buy a whole stock. That's how I was able to own just 0.07 of a Samsung stock, instead of having to buy an entire share. As I was going to mention Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are offering a free fractional share worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. Plus you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. I'll leave the link in the description if you're interested. Second is a real estate investment trust, otherwise known as a REIT. I know this one sounds pretty complicated, but it's actually quite cool. Imagine your friend collects $100 from 3,000 people, giving him $300,000. He then uses that money to buy a property, rents it out and shares the rental income with all 3,000 people who helped him buy it. That's a simple way to explain a REIT. It allows anyone to invest in properties without needing to buy one themselves. Think of it like you own the front door, someone else owns a window and a few others own the bricks, which means together everyone owns the entire property and shares in the profits. For learning curve, I'm going to say it's moderate, and that's because getting started with REITs is much easier than buying physical property. It's not like you need a huge down payment or a mortgage, and there's no need to deal with agents or solicitors. However, you do need to understand how REITs work. They own things like offices, shopping centres, apartments, hotels and much more, and they get their income through rent. For passive income potential, I'm going to say this is great. REITs are well known for paying high dividends. This is because the law says they have to pass on at least 90% of all their profits to investors. So as long as the REIT is doing well and its properties are rented out, you can earn a steady stream of passive income. Most businesses sign long-term leases on their commercial properties. Therefore, most of the time, income is pretty stable and reliable. But of course, just keep in mind that your earnings depend on the REIT you pick and the types of properties it owns. For tax efficiency, I'm going to put this down as great. This is because in many countries, REITs offer great tax benefits. For example, in the UK, you can hold REITs in a stocks and shares ISA, which means you don't have to pay taxes on your profits or dividends. In terms of risk, I'd have to say this is medium. REITs are generally less risky than buying a single property because they invest in multiple properties, spreading out the risk. However, they're not risk-free. If the real estate market takes a downturn, or if the REIT struggles to keep its properties rented, you might see both a drop in dividends and the value of the investment. So what's my investment worth now? Let's flash back to me making the investment 4 years ago. As I'm in the UK, I'm going to use the Trading 212 website to put $100 into a similar REIT. Ready for the moment of truth? Looking at my investment now, I can see it's worth $98.59. So that's a small loss of 1.41%. This shows that even though REITs are normally more stable than individual stocks, they're not guaranteed to perform well. My REIT likely underperformed because it invested in commercial real estate, which struggled during the pandemic. But that's not the end of the world, as I made $11.93 back in dividends, meaning I'm actually $10.52 up. So that's 10.52% up. Third is cryptocurrency. Imagine a form of digital money that isn't controlled by any government or bank. That's what cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are. These currencies run on the blockchain technology, which makes them secure, transparent, and almost impossible to counterfeit. Cryptocurrencies have created massive wealth for some people, with Bitcoin being the best performing asset of the last decade. But on the flip side, it's highly volatile and people have also lost fortunes. That's why I describe crypto as part investment and part speculation, and not for the faint-hearted. For learning curve, I'm going to say it's moderate. Crypto might sound complicated, but I'll break it down for you. First, you'll need a wallet. This is where you store your crypto. Think of it like a digital piggy bank, and there are different types. First are online wallets. These are easy to use, but you'll need to protect them with very strong passwords. Second are offline wallets, like hardware wallets. These are the safest because they're not connected to the internet. Next, you'll need to pick an exchange to buy and sell your crypto. Some popular ones are Coinbase and Binance. These platforms make it simple to trade, but make sure to choose a trustworthy exchange to avoid any issues. Then there's tokenomics. This just means understanding how the supply and demand of a coin works. For example, Bitcoin has a limited supply, which is why it's often called digital gold. For passive income potential, I'm going to also say this is moderate. Unlike stocks or REITs, crypto doesn't pay dividends, but there are ways to earn passive income. The first is called staking. This is when you lock up your crypto, like Ethereum, to help the system work and process transactions. In return, you get paid rewards, kind of like earning points for helping out. The second is yield farming. This is when you lend your crypto out to others and earn interest on it, similar to how a bank pays you interest when you save money with them. These methods can generate decent returns, but they do come with higher risks. If the coin's value drops or the platform you're using gets hacked, your income could disappear along with your crypto. That's why I personally don't mess with any of this and just hold mine on a Ledger wallet. For tax efficiency, I'm going to have to say this one is poor. Taxes are a tricky part of crypto investing. In many countries, even swapping one cryptocurrency for another counts as a taxable event. And if you earn staking rewards, those are also taxed as income. You also can't hold crypto in tax-advantaged accounts like ISAs or Roth IRAs, which makes it less tax efficient than stocks or REITs. In terms of risk, I'd have to say it's very high. Crypto is one of the most volatile investments out there. Prices can soar 1,000% in a year, but they can also crash just as fast. Personally, I just invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum as they are more established and often referred to as blue chip cryptocurrencies. Smaller altcoins can be far more risky. You've also got to be cautious of scams. Since crypto isn't regulated, if someone hacks your wallet or tricks you into sending your coins, there's no way to get them back. So keeping your crypto safe is just as important as learning how to invest in it. So what's my investment worth now? Let's rewind to when I made this investment 4 years ago.
So I'm going to jump onto the most popular Bitcoin app, which is called Coinbase, and invest my $100 in Bitcoin and forget about it.
Ready for the reveal? The $100 I invested in Bitcoin is now worth $652.24. That's a return of 552.24%. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's insane, and it is. But I have to stress that this kind of growth is not typical. Bitcoin has been the best performing asset of the last decade, but most cryptocurrencies don't see these kinds of returns. Many lose their value entirely. In my opinion, crypto is exciting and the technology behind it has the potential to transform industries. However, it's not for everyone. It's highly volatile, speculative, and requires a strong stomach to handle the wild price swings. Just remember, crypto is all about high risk and high reward. So if you're going to dive in, make sure you're doing your research and investing wisely. Fourth is gold. This is one of the oldest and most trusted ways to store and protect wealth. Gold is often called a safe haven because it's a great way to protect your wealth during uncertain times, like when inflation is rising or the economy is struggling. For learning curve, I'm going to have to say it's low. Learning how to invest in gold is pretty simple. You have two main options. First, physical gold. This includes gold bars and coins. Many people also think you can buy gold jewelry as investments, but you'll often pay more than the gold is actually worth because sellers add a markup for their craftsmanship. For this reason, I personally stick to gold coins. Just bear in mind, if you pick this option, then you'll have to store it somewhere safe. Second is gold ETFs. These are funds that let you invest in gold without physically owning it. For example, in the UK, you can use Trading 212 to buy shares in something like the iShares Physical Gold ETF. It's quick, easy, and you can buy or sell it with just a few clicks. Passive income potential is absolutely zero. Unlike stocks, REITs, or crypto, gold doesn't pay any passive income. It's not an income generating asset. It's purely a store of value. For tax efficiency, I'm going to put this as good. If you buy physical gold like gold coins or bars, the tax rules can be a little tricky. For example, in some countries, certain gold coins like the UK's Gold Britannias are considered legal tender, which means you don't pay capital gains tax when you sell them. However, this doesn't apply to all gold coins or bars, so you'll need to check the specific rules in your country. For gold ETFs, they're generally more straightforward. In countries like the UK, you can hold them in a stocks and shares ISA, which makes any profits completely tax-free. Interestingly, physical gold has another unique advantage. It can be used to transport wealth across borders discreetly. That said, this approach comes with risk, such as theft or legal restrictions on transporting large amounts of gold across borders. While it's not something I'd necessarily recommend, it's worth mentioning as a unique aspect of owning physical gold. In terms of risk, completely wrong. What these people actually mean is that side hustles are too competitive and require a ton of money to get started. That's a valid concern. Making money requires a lot of hard work. I don't think I really mention this enough in my videos. It took me years of building different side hustles to become a millionaire. So if you want a quick and easy formula to success, then you won't find it here, or anywhere else for that matter, because it doesn't exist. However, I can give you a simple 5-step plan that you can apply to any side hustle you choose. Step 1. Get good enough at something. Starting a side hustle is like playing a video game. You first need to increase your character's power by assimilating knowledge and developing valuable skills. Unlike Sims, your real-life avatar doesn't come with a ready-made six-pack. This is going to require some dedication. A valuable skill is anything you can learn that a large market is willing to pay you for in the future. Notice I said you just have to become good enough. That's because I don't think you should be wasting years of your life trying to become an expert before making any money. Look, I'm going to get straight to the point. Too many people go to university. Yes, knowledge is power, but unless you want a job in a traditional institution like becoming a lawyer or a doctor, there's little need to pay for traditional education. I'm a big believer in learning a skill whilst making money. I don't know why more people don't do this. My friend was the same when she became a counsellor. She felt like she had to become more and more qualified before she could charge for her services, even though she was already amazing at what she did. Now she's actively getting paid. However, just think how many people she could have helped and the money she would have earned if she'd have got over her mental block sooner. The same goes for you. There are people out there that need you now, not in 3 years' time. So it's time for you to decide what skill you want to learn. Remember, you need to make sure your skill has a wide enough appeal. I mean, if I decided to develop the skill of reciting the 7 Harry Potter books off by heart, that skill would be pretty useless when it comes to making money. Most people don't like to admit it, but they're extremely time rich and they could spend it learning a new skill, but instead they decide to chill. Now, that's okay if you don't want anything more from life, but the one thing I can't stand is people that complain about their situation and they don't do anything to change it. The truth is, society wants a docile population that goes to work, follows orders and collects their paycheck. That's why they continually pump out TV shows and films with blatant political messages, all designed to brainwash you. I mean, it's called programming for a reason. So a handful of examples of useful skills you can spend your free time learning are video creation, coding, negotiation, graphic design, writing, or even practical trades like carpentry, electrics and plumbing. The list goes on and on. There are so many side hustle ideas out there that allow you to be paid handsomely for leveling up your avatar. I mean, if you want to learn coding, then start building websites for friends. How about physical trades? Just help out a handyman on the weekend. And for video editing, reach out to work for an influencer. Step 2, offer a standout service. A few years ago, my son had become good enough at filming videos and editing them. He'd managed to teach himself these skills while posting to his YouTube channel, but he wasn't making much money. That's when he did something pretty clever. He decided to offer a standout service for clients. If you offer a normal service, for example, I'll film and edit your videos for $100 each, then you'll be lost in the crowd of competition. You'll be one of the many options for your customers. It doesn't matter if they're looking for a video editor, a web coder, graphic designer, or a salesman. They'll be comparing all of their options based on one thing, the price. This means that you'll always have to worry about competition, and ultimately, it's a race to the bottom, as there's always someone willing to work for less than you. That young lad who still lives at home editing videos is always going to be able to undercut you, as $10 to him is worth so much more than it is to you. I mean, he'd probably be one of the richest kids in the playground. The issue is being seen as a commodity. In other words, there are lots of different options and you're comparable to all of them. The solution to this is offering a standout service so that your customers don't see you as one of the many options, but instead the only option. This gives you the ability to charge far higher prices and build a much more lucrative side hustle. A standout service should look something like this. I'll create an action plan for your social media strategy, direct a bespoke promotional video, help you with your on-camera delivery, and use my experience in your sector to gain new customers and fans that will rave about your services. Let's break this down into 3 parts that you can replicate to make your own standout offer. The first one is niche. Although your skills only have to be good enough, your client should still look to you as an expert in their particular sector. This applies if you're looking to become a social media manager, Facebook ads expert, drop shipper, consultant, and so many more. People are much more likely to pay for someone that's positioned themselves as a specialist within a niche rather than a jack of all trades. Now, the person that does everything might actually be better than you. However, they're not perceived in that way, and the way people see you is what matters. Before jumping into one of these, it's very important to evaluate what niche has the highest earning potential, and secondly, what you enjoy the most. In an ideal world, it'll be the same answer. However, it doesn't always work that way. Money is obviously very important, but you aren't going to get anywhere if you hate what you do. So it might be worth taking a perceived cut in income for more enjoyment, because in the long run, your motivation should make up for that loss of money. The second part of a standout service is financial incentive. In order to charge more for your side hustle, you need to make more money for your clients. Think about what skills you have or are planning to learn and how you can use them to make other people wealthier. It's so important to sell this financial incentive rather than the actual product, such as the video, website copywriting, and so on. No one really cares about that. They only care about what that product will do for them. The third part of a standout service is skill stacking. This is essentially taking all the valuable skills you've assimilated in level 1 and slotting them together like a jigsaw puzzle. In my example, this is of course the social media skills I'm using to create their action plan, production skills to create the video itself, and directing skills to make sure their on-camera delivery hits the mark. Step 3, productize your service. Once you productize your service, you can sell it to multiple people. This will allow you to make a lot more money without drastically increasing your expenses. Productized services enable you to expand your side hustle and serve more customers without dedicating an excessive amount of hands-on work to each project. The model is repeatable and should only require modification. In other words, you shouldn't have to make any massive changes when adapting it to different clients or projects. To make a productized service, you'll need to outline precisely what your customer will get and at what price. You'll then be able to sell this product many times. The customer is still receiving a service, now with the appealing predictability of an off-the-shelf product. There are endless possibilities when it comes to productized services, as they're only limited by the creativity of the service providers.